Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. Joining me today is the author of Angel Tales, Catherine Lanigan. And she's actually got several books out. This is just the one we're choosing to discuss today since it's her latest book. But most of her books, if I remember correctly, do deal with, angels and people's stories of their angel encounters. Although she's also written several, articles. She might want to correct me on that. Not a book or two for Chicken Soup for the Soul, which just about everybody is familiar with that book. And I'm pretty sure that, Angel Tales would be a good thing to have in there when you're talking about, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I mean, what could be better than Angel Tales and talking about their messages? I'm gonna let her introduce herself or tell you a little something about herself here in just a minute. But before we get too far along, and I forget, her web address is www.catherinelanigan.com, and you can get her links to her books from there, or you can scroll further down her description here, and at the bottom I got a link to her book at Amazon.com. For those of you that are listening at YouTube or somewhere else, you want to get in the chat room, join us live, ask questions in the chat, it's www.paranormalpalace.com. And for the if you want to call in and ask a question, it's 832-632-7904. And Catherine, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing terrific. I'm here in Indiana, even though I lived in Houston for 35 years, and it is very cold up here. We're probably below freezing tonight, and we had a little bit of snow yesterday, so we'll see if we get some more tonight. So
not us. We're in the 40s.
It is in Houston.
No, we're in the 40s at night and the 70s during the day, or high 60s.
Yeah, see, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. That's what we had last month.
It's still pretty much the season to be sneezing, as I like to put it.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
Now, was I right earlier about the biggest majority of your books being about angels in different aspects?
Well, I have a whole series that are on angels. Yes, that's true. Angel Tales is the newest one in the series. The very first one was called Angel Watch, and the second one was called Divine Nudges. And, of course, Angel Tales is brand new, but they are all true stories, and they are stories from people, just like when I come on your radio show. If people have a story that's about an angel encounter or an encounter with someone who is, a loved one who has passed away, near-death experience, a very strange miracle, strange signs. We'll talk about all those things tonight. But I also have a special email where you can send me your story, which is cdlanigan@aol.com. And that's Lanigan, Lanigan. But most of my books, I've been published 43 times, and most of my books were romances and women's fiction for maybe 2 or 3 decades, to be honest. And the reason I got started on all the angel stories is a really good angel story. So when you're ready for me to tell that angel story, I will tell that.
Okay, now which angel story was you referring to again?
This one, my very first.
Oh, okay.
My very first angel book. My father, both my parents had heart attacks at the Grand Canyon in about 1987, and I was living in Houston at the time. And my father died for 22 minutes, and he was stone cold dead. They brought him back. They had to pound on his heart. They broke all of his ribs, his collarbone, and his sternum, trying to bring him back. And when he came back, I was in Houston. He was, of course, in Flagstaff, Arizona. And my sister was here in Indiana, and she met me in Phoenix, and we flew up to Flagstaff that night and went into the ICU. We got there about midnight that night, and he said, and as I walked into the room, he said, "Oh, Catherine, I'm so glad that you're here. I have to tell you what happened to me when I went to the other side." And he said, "I met a being of light." And I said, "You mean you met an angel?" And he said, No. An angel is entirely different. That's one of the other guys. This was a being of light. And he told me that you were going to write a book. And I said, "Well, Daddy, since I've written about 8 at this point, and they're all published, that's not something new." And he said, "But your writing's going to change. You're going to start writing about angels." And I said, "Okay."
Well, you answered that question for me without me asking.
Yeah.
Usually one of the first questions I always ask everybody is what got them started in their particular field that they like to write about or their area of interest. And, well, you just got that one for me.
There you go. But, I mean, I have been writing historical novels, and, I wrote about World War II and World War I and all kinds of different, books like that. To sit down and anyway, he went on to elaborate. He said, "You are supposed to take the stories that other people give you, and you're just the chronicler. You're not to judge anything. You're just supposed to put the puzzle pieces together so people know what it's going to be like when they die, what heaven is like." And gleaning the stories from each of the people that have sent me stories, there are so many similar threads that run through, no matter how bizarre the stories are, there's always certain things, certain aspects that never deviate. So it's been, and I started writing them in the early 90s. I started gathering stories, and that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I've read this book pretty extensively myself, but I don't want to get you to quoting too much, the actual cases you got in here, maybe a couple of them, because, you don't want to exactly give the candy store away. But you and me...
Oh, I know, but there's so many of them. And I've already finished the 4th book, and I'm working on the 5th one in the series, and I get hundreds of stories every time I come on a show like yours. So there's a lot that I have used and a lot that I haven't used, but there are all kinds of angel stories. My favorites are the ones of vanishing angels, where someone literally shows up at your door and talks to you, and then they vanish right in front of your eyes. So
you've actually you've written about those, but have you actually experienced one of those yourself?
I had one once. Yes, I had one once, and but the best one that I ever heard was, actually there are 2 of them, to be very honest. One was it's in Angel Tales, and it's Donna Vall's story. She was a young artist, and she worked in a gift shop that had a lot of angel, angel memorabilia and angel things in her store and stuff like that. But she was at a crossroads in her life. Her career, she wasn't really sure what she wanted to do with her career. She wanted to paint, but she just didn't know if she should really go out there. You know how you're like, maybe I better keep my day job, or maybe I should go learn to be an accountant, or maybe I should learn that, how you can be trying to decide that when you're only 29 or 30 or even younger. And anyway, she was working in the store, and this man walked in the store, and she said he was one of the most beautiful men she had ever seen in her life. He was probably in his middle 30s. He was tall, dark, handsome, just striking blue eyes. And she said the minute he walked up to her and said hello, she said, I knew I was talking to an angel, because just the vibration of him, just the feel of him was different than a human being. It was just so, he was so loving and so warm, and so there was so much compassion even in just the simple things that he did. She said she just knew he was an angel. And anyway, she was a portrait artist at the time. And what she used to do was people would bring a photograph of themselves, or maybe them, them with their child or their dog or whatever, and then she would do a painting from the photograph. She did colored chalks, and she did acrylics. So, but that's how she made, money on the side, and that was her talent. That's what she wanted to do. And he started talking to her about different things. Do you like your job? Well, it's okay. And he saw some of her portraits that she had behind the counter, behind the register. And she had clients that were coming to pick up their portraits that she had done. And he said, those are your paintings. You painted those portraits, didn't you? And she said, yes, I did. And he said, well, from today and on into your future, your painting is going to change. And she said, what do you mean? And he said, you're going to start painting not just the portrait, but these people, you're going to paint their guardian angels. You will start seeing their guardian angels, and the guardian angel will come through on the paintings that you do for these people. And she said, how do you know that? And he said, well, I'm just telling you that that's what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell the whole story. But anyway, so she turned around to go get one of the paintings to, talk to him about it, and he walked out the door, and she saw him walk out the door. She put the painting down. She went to the door, and by the time she got to the door, he had just walked out the door. He completely vanished into thin air. She said she went down the, sidewalk. She knew he didn't go down the sidewalk, but she went anyway looking for him. He was nowhere to be seen. And right after that, when she started painting portraits, the people that she was painting, their guardian angels, started coming through, and she started painting the guardian angels of the people that she met. And she now has a website that's called Spirits to Go, I think it is, or something. I'll think of it in a minute. But her name is Donna Vall, and she's a fascinating lady. And her portraits are just phenomenal, believe me.
You also had another lady that had a rather, astounding case going on, whereas she had gotten almost out of gas. She runs into this gas station in this out-of-the-way place. She sees some rough characters. She gets really scared, and this guy comes out and actually walks her right out of there like nothing's going on, and guides her all the way back to her house, 40 miles away, on a tank almost empty of gas. That's
right. I love that story. Don't you? And apparently you do too. Because that's what was so fascinating about the story, was she was going to this party, and she knew she only had a quarter of a tank of gas, and she's driving for like 30 miles or more, and she got worried because she didn't have any gas. She didn't have a lot of money. And then she, goes into that grocery store, and there were some very nefarious-looking gentlemen there, kind of really rough-looking guys. And then when the man, this older man, said, I'll help you. I'll guide you home. I'll show you how to get home. And she drove all the way home another 40 miles on still this tank of gas that never deviated from the quarter tank that she always had. She still had plenty of gas to get home. And stories like that, I love that, because there's no explanation other than it was a divine incident. You just can't explain those things away. That's what really happened.
Yeah, and most all of these angel stories, I noticed they all had the same kind of attributes. For example, every case of a person who reported to you they had an encounter with an angel, they always seemed to disappear without hanging around to be thanked, and nobody knew where they went, and they were, here today, gone today. I mean, just, the snap of a fingers, in other words.
Right. Exactly. I had this one time when I was in Houston, and those of you who are in Houston, I don't know if the freeway is still the same because this really was about 20, maybe even 25 years ago. But I was coming up 59 highway, and there's a place where it breaks to the left and breaks to the right. And there's just a big barricade in the middle of where you're supposed to turn. And I had been coming up from the south, and I needed to go to the west. And when there was a car that just shot right in front of me, and in order for me not to hit that car and then not hit the barricade, I was going to have to move over to the lane that was to my left. Well, there was a car right there, and normally I was penned in on both sides, and there was just a barricade in front of me, and I thought, I'm going to slam into that car that's there, and out of nowhere came this 1957 pea green DeSoto that was being driven by this little old African-American man that was, and I saw him out of in the rearview mirror and the side mirror, and he just kind of like gave me a little wave, like it's okay. And he was driving slower and held back all the traffic so that I could get over to the left, and which I did just as I was about to hit the barricade. I scooted over to the left. I was fine. I didn't hit the other car. He kept everybody away from me. And as I pulled, into the traffic, and I was going probably, a good 50 miles an hour, maybe 55. I don't think I was going any faster than that, but I certainly was going 55. And so I looked in the rearview mirror to wave to him and thank him. He was not there at all. Now, what's interesting about it, not only did he and the car disappear, but when I was growing up in 1964 or 5 or 6 or something, one of my first cars that my father bought for me for $150 was a pea green 1957 DeSoto. But
in other words, that angel could have been your father.
Yeah, well, yeah. So at that point, my dad was alive, but it was interesting that it was a car I would recognize. It was a car. I know that car. That car's from my past. That's from my childhood. But that man in that car and that car completely disappeared. They vanished into thin air. There was another story in, not in Angel Tales, but in Angel Watch, I believe it. Yeah, it was in Angel Watch. It was a girl I met. She was in Dallas. And there is a place in old downtown Dallas that is like very old buildings are now warehouses and things like that and everything. And she had gone down there because it was, they have all the fashion district and all that, in Dallas. There's a lot of that kind of store. And she had heard that there was this really great discount place where she could buy fabulous clothes if she went to this one area. Well, she did. But when she got there, she had car trouble, and her car broke down. And she got out of the car and went and, was checking out the car, and I think that there was something wrong with the motor. The car wouldn't restart or whatever it was. Well, anyway, she started walking down the block, and she realized that all of these warehouses and everything, they were vacant. And standing on the corner down at the end of the block was a real gang of guys. There were probably 5 or 6 of them. And all of a sudden they noticed her and saw she was a lone woman, car's not working, there's nobody around, everything was abandoned.
That's a scary situation.
Very scary. And the sun was going down, it was starting to get dark, she didn't know what to do, and out of nowhere, this white van pulls up, and this man gets out, he's a priest, gets out and he says, "Do you need some help?" And she said, "Yes, I need to find a station where I can get a mechanic to fix my car." And he said, "Get in my van and I will take," he said, "it's only a couple blocks away." So she did. She got in his van and they went just 3 blocks over and found a mechanic, a station that was a mechanic. And of course, once they were 3 blocks away, well, it's like all those all big cities, you know, you go 2 blocks this way and then it's fine. Everything's fine, you know. And so she and the priest went in to go get the mechanic, and he said, well, just a minute, I'll go get my truck keys and then I'll meet you. And she said, okay. So she turned around to to tell the priest thank you, and he and the van were gone. He was right behind her when they had walked in to talk to the mechanic, and he and the van were completely gone. She said it wasn't even 30 seconds. And the mechanic said, you know, yes, I'll go get my car. I'll go get my truck. I'll be right there. And she turned around and he was gone.
Now, some people, though, they have recurring visits and not just necessarily from angels. Take a friend that you and me both have, Claire Papin, another fellow Houstonian. You wrote about her, I think, at least 2 or 3 times here. 2 I can remember for sure in your book, Angel Tales.
Right.
Her stories were, I think, rather extraordinary. Would you like to tell us a little something about it?
I would. Claire's story, I think, is one of the most phenomenal that I've ever heard. First of all, people who are skeptics will say, well, you grew up all your life, you know, hearing stories about angels, and so you just think you saw an angel, or you've always, you know, heard that your departed, you know, grandmother and mother will come back and talk to you, and so that's why, you know, it's just an illusion, it's just your imagination, it's not really real. Now, what's fascinating about Claire is that she grew up with absolutely no religious background at all. Her family, they didn't talk about angels, they didn't talk about Jesus, they didn't talk about Mary. It just wasn't done in their household. They all were very loving and good people, but she just had no religious background. So when Claire was in her early 30s, I think, she had an apartment in Houston, and my favorite part of her story, because there's so many facets to this story, because it just keeps unfolding, and her story is still unfolding.
Has been for many years, in fact.
Yes, it has been for many years. And anyway, Claire was reading a book in her apartment, and she went to the window and shut the window, and all of a sudden she was just overcome with this fabulous song and was given this beautiful, beautiful lullaby. And she started singing the song, and she heard a voice that told her that this was Mary's lullaby. This was, you know, this song. She was supposed to sing the song. Well, now later, as the story goes on, you have to buy the book and read the book to get the whole story. But later on, she was visited by Mother Mary and 2 angels. And you know, I'm a Catholic, and so we always said the Blessed Virgin. We didn't say Mother Mary. She said, well, this is Mother Mary, the Mother of Christ. But that's because she doesn't have any religious background, you know. So for someone like Claire to go to some of the places that she's been where she has seen Mary not once, but twice, but 3 times, but 4 times, and seen angels 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 times in her life. Incredible phenomenon around the story of Mary things that have happened to her. I mean, absolute miracles. The story of the miraculous medal is just absolutely one of my favorite stories. And Claire, of course, tells it very, very well. But it was so interesting to me because I was Catholic and I grew up with the story of the miraculous medal. And Claire was one who had faith in that medal. She had a dream that she was standing on the shore of the Pacific Ocean. She was in California, and she took the medal and she threw it out into the sea. That was her dream. Well, not much longer after that, maybe, you know, a few weeks or a month or something, she had an occasion to go to California, but just prior to her leaving, she had met this man at, I think it was at the radio station. Was it at KTRH?
Yes, I believe it was. You're talking about
I think
Steve.
It was. Yeah, I'm talking about Steve. And so Steve was in a wheelchair, and when she first met him, and she said she just had this feeling that he shouldn't be in that wheelchair, and so she gave him a miraculous medal, which is a very round. It's not a round. It's an oval disc with a picture of Mary, the Blessed Virgin, in the middle, and then there's I think there's a cross on the back, and then there's stars around the back. I'm doing this from memory. There's stars around the back of that, and that's a miraculous medal. Well, anyway, so she goes out to California, and in the dream she thought, why would I be standing in the sand with a business suit on, and my high heels in my hand, and then throwing this medal out into the sea? Why would I be doing that? And, well, anyway, when she actually got to California, she had been on an interview or gone to a business meeting, and she was in her business suit. She took her heels off and walked out to the end of the shore, and she had her miraculous medal in her hand, and she threw it out into the ocean and said a little prayer for Steve. When she went back to Houston and went to the radio station, she saw Steve when she was working in the station, and they were, doing their little gig, and all of a sudden she said, "You're not in your wheelchair." And he said, "No, I'm not. I can walk again."
That was a pretty amazing testimony.
Yeah.
What she didn't say in that was what became of Steve after that.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's because that's the punchline of the story. So I don't know what happened to Steve after that. I'm sure he's got a radio show someplace.
Well, that would be nice to. Oh, wait, we got a caller calling in here.
Okay.
Okay, you're on the air.
Hi, baby. I'm waiting till she finishes speaking.
She just did.
Okay, I'm still hearing her.
Probably because you got your speaker on.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
You might want to turn your speaker off because we can hear you, echoing.
Okay, I turned it down. I have a lot of angel tales to tell, but the one that really struck me the most is I used to work at a nursing home, and I was on this one particular floor for a while, and then they moved me to another section, and then I was substituting one day for somebody, and I went back to the old floor where I used to be, and this man goes, I was taking trays in for them to eat dinner, and he goes, "I am so glad you came back. Because I've been waiting for you. I have a message from you." And a message from me? Like, I've seen him do on Touched by an Angel. And he goes, "Yes, I have a message to you from God." And I started looking around expecting, Touched by an Angel. And by this point, I was getting goosebumps. And the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. And he goes, "God has a plan for you in your life." He goes, "There's more important jobs for you to do than, what you're doing now. And you're going to, have a very important job." And I know now what he was talking about, but I go back to what I was saying. And then I left him his tray, and he didn't want to eat anything. And I walked out, and I didn't see him again until the next morning. I went back to work. I heard that he had passed away right after I had walked in his room. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, even talking about it now, I get chill bumps.
I bet.
And there was another time that I was in a hospital. I was going to the hospital to have tests, and it was just like during the day, and I was started having a panic attack, and because I was just so scared. And this woman came and she put her arms around me, and she set me down. She talked to me for a few minutes, and she goes, "I'll walk with you there. I'll walk you to where you need to go." And we've got as far as the elevators, and I turned around to, say something to her, and she was just gone, nowhere to be seen.
Oh, wow.
It was like, wow, I believe there are angels all around us all the time.
Oh, I do too. What did the woman look like? Do you remember?
She was like kind of an elderly lady.
Uh-huh.
Kind of looked Hispanic, dark hair, curly hair. Kind of on the heavy set side, you know. Not anybody would notice, you know, right off the bat, you know, if you saw her in the crowd. But I thought that was so awesome. And another
that is very awesome.
We had a fireplace that it like I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was like it wasn't like in the building in the house built in. It was like and it had it just stood free and it had like a stereo and on one side and a place for drinks and stuff on the other side. And we were I don't know what happened. We were right around there and we had the TV on top of it and it started to fall. And my youngest son was not very old at the time, maybe not even 5. And that thing teetered and it teetered and it teetered. And then I had just enough time to grab my son out of the way and then it fell. You know, it was like somebody was standing there holding it until I got him out of the way.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah. My husband don't remember the same way I do, but that's the way I remember.
But you were paying attention. You know, that's the whole thing about, you know, that's why the first one I called it Angel Watch. It's not that the angels are watching over us. It's that we need to pay attention and watch for them and then acknowledge it when it is happening and when it did happen. And that's what you did. You were on your angel watch. And you saw something a little different that really shouldn't have been quite like that if, you know, if you were just viewing it from the earth plane, you know.
We've had a fire behind our couch. The plug-in thing caught on fire, the electrical outlet, and there was burn marks on the wall. And it could have caught our couch on fire. It could have caught the curtains on fire. But it didn't. It went out. You could see how high it went, and then it just went out.
Well, the interesting thing about that, babe, that you missed was that Uncle Marvin's picture was about halfway up that wire, roughly, and it burned up to the bottom of his picture. It burned down to the top of his picture, and it missed his picture, and it completely burnt the little square piece that plugged into the wall to the point of no use.
Really? Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? Okay, I haven't heard that kind of story.
Well, you come to our show, you get something new.
That's right. I love it. I love it. That's really fun. So I wonder if it's
all around us all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean yes. I mean we all do, but some of us. I really do believe that the more that you look for them and seek them out, the more that you draw them in. You know, it's just like everybody now is talking about the law of attraction. You know, if you think lovely thoughts and you think positive and you are a positive person, you draw that into you. If you are constantly negative, you're going to draw negative things to you. Well, I think the same thing happens with the angels. If you keep acknowledging them and thanking them, that's all they want to do is, you know, when some little thing happens, some people call it a coincidence. I call it, you know, the divine intervention. But I say thank you, you know, thank you for moving that car so that I could park my car there, you know. I do believe in the parking space angel. I need them all the time. It keeps me safe.
I am the parking space angel. But just for a real quick second, there was one other detail I left off there that made that last story just a hair tad more interesting. That picture was out of the frame. I don't know why, but it was just tacked up to the wall with the tack sticking to the actual laminated picture itself. No frame, no wooden frame, no glass or anything like that to protect it.
Really?
So you would have thought, in other words, that paper should have...
It should have incinerated in a second.
Exactly.
It should have. Because photo paper burns quickly.
But yet it burned down to the top of it and up to the bottom of it and didn't touch the picture.
And didn't touch the picture. Now see, now the question begs is, was that Uncle Marvin, is that who you were saying the picture was of?
Yeah.
Was he the one that protected the picture? Is he in the house? Or
well, we kind of suspected that, but we don't know for sure.
I pretty much I would be telling you, that's it. It's his picture that was preserved. I would be saying, that's his sign to you. Hey, I'm here, you know, pay attention. I'm here to help.
I think what it was, we'd had one of those outside hanging lights that light up your front yard and porch area. And somebody had just replaced the light bulb. They didn't get it right. It rained inside of it, and the wire to it went through a hole in the wall from the outside to the end, and then draped down the wall to the wall outlet. And I guess when it rained, it caused a fire where the bulb wasn't put in correctly, and we didn't know about it, and the whole thing happened and burned out without it. We didn't find out till the next morning. We come up here and saw the wire and the burn marks on the wall. So, you know, we were lucky because we didn't even wake up.
Yeah, you're lucky the whole place didn't burn down. I mean, that's normally the story you hear is that, you know, not just the wall being, you know, having a little scorch mark on it, but, you know, seriously, that something really drastic had happened. So,
well, let me ask you.
We had this house.
Do what?
Because my aunt left me the house, you know,
and is that Uncle Marvin's wife?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, yes. Yes. Well, I bought the house that my parents built in 1949, and this is where I grew up, and we moved into this house when I was only 3 years old. So I just love it. You know, it's just very warm and cozy, and just feels. When people come over, we always have lots of parties here, and when people come over, they always just say, "It just feels so warm here. It's a house full of love."
Well, have you ever heard of any cases where people, while they were here on Earth before they passed on, were very cantankerous, very ornery, mean-spirited types, but yet when they passed to the other side, ended up angels?
No. Actually, that's not true. I have one story that comes close, but I haven't heard that story. Have you heard that story?
Well, no, but, well, Uncle Marvin was a pretty cantankerous old fella, and it would be hard to picture him being an angel protecting us, but I guess he could be a family member and protect his family even if he was cantankerous.
Yeah, and, you know, and I had a grandmother that was, you know, cantankerous and everything. And then, but as I got older and I realized, you know, she was 84 years old. You know, when I was born, she was 79, and she didn't feel good. She had a lot of arthritis. She had heart conditions, you know, and I thought, you know, I know how much I moan and groan when I just got a sinus infection like I have now. I can't imagine the pain she went through every day just to get around, and, you know, we had to take care of her, and that was before there were no assisted livings and all the nursing homes that we have now, so she had to live in her home. And all the kids, cousins, and my mom and my aunts and uncles, everybody had to take turns, you know, either fixing her lunch or going over after Mass and, you know, taking care of her because she couldn't take care of herself. And we never liked her because she was just like, you know, stop making all that noise. Don't be playing. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I have been places where other people who see angels or dead, you know, they see dead people, have said, "Who is Grace?" And I'll say, "That's my grandmother." And they said, "Well, she's here and she's got an armload of flowers, of roses for you. Whenever you smell a rose, it's your grandmother Grace because she loved you very much." Well, I never felt that when she was alive at all. But, you know, when she died, I think I was 13, maybe 12. So I was only looking at her and knowing her from a child's eyes. You know, she doesn't want to play, you know, baby dolls with me, and she doesn't want to play Monopoly with me. She just wants to complain. But she was looking at me as, you know, an elderly woman who was ill. So, you know, and I don't know what she was like when she was young. I have no idea what she was like when she was young at all. I've never talked to anybody. By the time I was old enough to even be curious, all of her compadres were dead, you know. So that's the closest story I can have, is that I have many times, even recently, said, who's the woman with the roses for you? I said, that's my grandmother Grace. She always shows up.
Okay. Well, babe, did you have any more questions for Catherine?
Nothing that I can think of right off the top of my head, but I enjoyed talking to you, and I enjoyed your book a whole lot.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it.
I'm still reading the last chapter, but I stay busy, so I don't have much time to read until nighttime. So
yeah,
I'll probably finish it tonight.
Well, I understand, because I do the same thing. That's when, you know, I get my reading in is at night. You know, we do other work all day long, but the reading part is what I get to do at night. But, you know, I've always got 2 or 3 books going at the same time, so.
It's my relaxed time.
Yeah, it is.
All righty. Well, babe, I'll be back there to meet with you after the show, and I'm going to get back to the guests right now, so we can move on with where we were at.
Okay.
And you can feel pretty honored there, Catherine. She don't come to the biggest majority of my shows.
Well, I am honored. It was a pleasure, and I love hearing your stories. I think those were great. You know, when she was talking about the gentleman when she worked in the nursing home, a friend of Claire's also that she introduced me to is Johnny Lerma. Have you ever had him on your show? Dr. Johnny Lerma?
No, I haven't.
He, I think it's, Into the Light is his book, but he is a hospice doctor at MD Anderson Hospital. And so when his patients come to him, they are dying. He doesn't get them until it's the last 3 weeks of their life. And he has the most fascinating stories. He said he's had over 30,000 cases that he's taken care of in his, you know, career. And the stories that he's gathered, he's given me several of them to put in the books, but now that he's published his book, you know, I don't want to infringe on his area, but I know he won't mind if I tell a story. He said they had this one lady who was a very devout Jewish lady, and her family was, they were Orthodox Jewish, you know, and she had, and I want to say she was from Argentina, South America, I believe. Anyway, I think she came to Johnny when she had about 2.5 or 3 weeks left to live. And he came in one day, and she was talking to someone, and he said, "Who are you talking to?" Because there's no one in the room. And she said, "I'm talking to Jesus." And he said, "What?" And she said, "I'm talking to Jesus." He said, "Well, where is he?" And she said, "He's standing at the foot of my bed." And he said, "Well, what is he saying? What is he doing?" She said, "Well, he's washing my feet for my entrance into heaven." So her family, when her family came in, she would tell them that she was talking to Jesus and these different things that he was saying to her about he was there to help her, he was there for her, you know, for her to be witness to him being alive and being there, you know, to help take her over to heaven. And her family they wouldn't hear anything of it, you know. She's just hallucinating, you know, how everybody, it must be the drugs. Well, she wasn't on, and Dr. Lerma said she wasn't on any drugs. This was not a drug-induced dream or anything. And then after, she died than the family, because the family, the children, I guess there were 2 sons. I want to say there were 2 sons. I could have that wrong, but they wouldn't even speak to her for quite a while she was in the hospital, because she kept insisting that she was talking to Jesus every day. And but anyway, her husband, at the end, he believed her, and her sons came back, and when she was dying, she said, Jesus said he loves you too, but he's really here. And at the end, they all believed her.
Okay.
I thought that's a fascinating story. He's got some really good ones. I'm telling you, you got to have him on your show.
I just tried to Google him, and I wasn't able to get no information, but I bet Claire could help put me in touch with him.
Oh, yes, she can. I can give you his numbers, too. But it's John, and it's Lerma, Lerma. But when he was first putting together his book was when I met him. This is over a decade ago. And I told him, I said, you gotta keep at it. You gotta do it. This is who you need to send it to. And he did. He got a publisher, and I'm just really, really happy for him. It's just because those stories need to be out there for people to understand that, when my father was finally dying he died 3 times. The 4th time took. That's how we say it. He died 3 times and he came back.
Succeed.
Exactly. Keep trying. Well, anyway,
I'm sorry. I really shouldn't have went there, but
no, it's really true. He had the greatest sense of humor. He would have loved it. He would have said, "This is how you do it." Anyway, at the end, he was in a hospice room in the hospital. It was before they called it hospice. They just said that's the floor you go to where you die, at the end. And but he was in a lot of pain, but he refused all pain medication. He wouldn't even take a Tylenol. And I said, Daddy, why are you doing this? Why don't you let them give you some morphine or give you something, to take the pain away? And he said, because I want my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to know that I was clear-brained and that what I am telling you is the truth. It is the reality. And he said, I am living between the worlds. You are living the dream. The other side is reality. This world is the dream. It is an illusion.
People say that before, and I hear that it's very common amongst near-death experiencers.
Mm-hmm.
That when they all come back, the ones that do live, they say the same thing. Apostle Paul even said it, that the other side is the real and this is the illusion.
Yeah, this is the illusion. This is the reflection of heaven, so above is below, or however you say that. And but anyway, my dad, just so you know, as my father graduated the top of his law class at Notre Dame. He was Phi Beta Kappa. He had a photographic memory. He was one of the most brilliant men I have ever met in my life. And for my father, who was a dyed-in-the-wool Catholic, Catholics never referred to the other side as the other side. They called it heaven. You didn't call it the other side. I never even heard those words until he died and came back and said, well, I went to the other side. And I said, the other side of what? And he said, well, that's what they call it. They call it the other side when you get there, when you're dead. And I said, well, I thought it was called heaven. And he said, well, you can call it that, but that's not what they really call it. I was like, okay, this is a guy that never would have used that kind of verbiage, to describe heaven. He would have said heaven. And when he said a being of light, that was entirely different than an angel. An angel is a species unto itself. They are not human beings that become angels. They are angels. Angels are angels, human beings are human beings, and light beings are light beings. Very interesting.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before. In fact, I've always, read places in the Bible where it says we were created just a little less than angels. But, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end up becoming an angel.
No, you won't become an angel. You'll still be a human being. The soul that we are that's in this human body, we're in a human being's body, but our soul is is the part that goes to heaven, So.
Now, my wife was just telling me in chat that she had a dream about heaven the other night, but she didn't give any details on it.
Rats.
About that little remark I made earlier, you have to understand, I'm in Houston, Texas, and although this is a city, I'm still a redneck, and you just can't get the country and the humor out of me.
That is just fine.
But I wanted to, while we're on the topic of heaven, your second section in the book is about heaven, paradise, and the Crystal City. Oh, wait, she's wanting me to put her back on. I was fixing to say, while we're waiting for her to call in, this is another common theme for, with angel visitations is this Crystal City thing.
Yes. Yes. I found it very interesting because I've had 2 near-death experiences, and in not the first one, but the second one, I went to.
Okay, now we're back live again, everybody. We experienced a technical difficulty, but we seem to have it repaired now. So why don't you go ahead with your dream, babe?
Like I was saying, I had a dream about heaven, and it looked like a large courthouse, but instead of having panel walls, it was totally glass. And I could see out the window, and everything was the brightest green, brightest flowers, the brightest colors I had ever seen in my life. And this place was really, really crowded, and people were milling around, and Royce was there, and I saw him, and I hugged him and kissed him and, spent some time with him. But then, and I was happy to see him, but it seemed like there was a sadness to him. And, it seemed like we had been apart for a long, long time. But I pulled away from him, and I walked around the corner, and my Nana was sitting there. And she was sitting with someone that looked familiar to me, but I wasn't sure who it was. And I sat down on the bench, those long benches on either side of the wall, and I started hugging her, and I could smell her. She loved the perfume, pearls, and lace, and I do too, but I can't find it anymore. But and I started hugging her, and I was crying and crying and crying because I'd been away from her a long time. But outside, I could see the most beautiful scenery that I've, ever experienced in my real life. And I woke up from that dream, and it was just it was so real, It was an amazing dream.
Mhm. From both people who have had these glimpses of heaven, which I don't like to even call them dreams anymore because they're so similar to near-death experiences. What you saw is exactly what near-death experience people see. They call it the Crystal City because the buildings are made of glass or crystal or white marble. Everything's just so light. It's not. You don't have that feeling of wood or dark, that kind of thing. And I agree. The gardens are just unbelievable colors that you don't even know how to describe them. And I'm a writer, and I can't even describe them. So it's just like everything is lit from within, as if every single blade of grass has a light bulb inside of it. And like almost holographic or something. It's just so beautiful. There's still wind. I can remember that there was wind. And I remember the garden benches. They were like concrete garden benches or marble benches or something like that. I think white marble, now that I think about it. And but always, no matter what you're doing, everything is so filled with emotion. All kinds of emotion. It's love and probably, yes, you've been away from someone for a long time, so there's even more outpouring of emotion because there was a sense of getting back together, the reunion, the sense of reunion, not so much, I didn't see, the time, because there's not a sense of time like that, but just this reunion is finally, this is wonderful, But the thing that I think is most remarkable, when you have a glimpse of heaven like that, whether it's through a dream, it can be a nocturnal dream, a lot of people through meditation, really strong meditation during the day, or a near-death experience, it is so real, even more real than what you just went through today when you had, a hot dog and potato chips for lunch. It's that real, and you cannot forget it.
It's been usually dreams that I have in the middle of the night. By the time I wake up in the morning, I've done forgot.
Mm-hmm.
This glimpse of heaven, I cannot forget.
No, you cannot forget it. That's why I think I believe, and I'm not the only person who believes this, believe me, but that's why I believe those are real glimpses of heaven. That was a real experience. You went there. I don't know how it happens. I mean, I've got all kinds of different theories that I've, read and discussed with everybody from, quantum physics physicists to, shrinks of how that all happens. But the point is, it is so real. That really did happen to you. You really saw that glimpse of heaven and what it would be like. Now, it could be that this was your grandmother or your mother?
My grandmother. Your
grandmother. It could be that your grandmother wanted to meet with you, so she made that happen for you,
Wow. I was real close to my Nana. I was Nana's favorite.
Yeah. So she wants to be near to you again.
And I to her. I miss her so much. It's been 24 years since 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
No, 24. 24. Cause she died a year after we got married. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And, it was like she was waiting for me to get settled before, she went on.
Right. Well, I believe you got to see something, and that's what that's what you're in store for. You'll be with her, and that's where it'll be, and that's what it's going to be like. All three of you, apparently.
Yeah?
Yeah, she mentioned I was sad. It must be because I was looking forward to being a free spirit again, and I found out I was going to be on the ball and chain for eternity.
That has to be it.
No, I just had to get myself in trouble.
Absolutely. That's too cute. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying last Thursday when we had our 25th anniversary here.
Oh, how fun. 25 years. That's amazing. And what is the date of your anniversary?
Well, November 8th.
November 8th. Wow. Mine's coming up, December 21st, the first day of winter. So it'll be our wedding anniversary, so that's nice.
How long have you been married?
9 years.
Did I just hear you say December 21st?
Uh-huh.
It's also the date of the Mayan calendar.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's, we didn't know that 9 years ago.
I wouldn't worry about it. I don't see anything,
I don't either.
All the doomsdayers say. I mean, they're fast running out of time for all the signs of the time to show up.
Yeah. As I say to my coworkers, we couldn't be that lucky.
Okay. Well, babe, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No, that's all for now. This time.
That was pretty darn good because I've had 2 or 3 other people that I've talked to, about the Crystal City, and one of the things they say, in my experience, was I saw gorgeous churches, like Notre Dame in Paris, but they were all glass or crystal and had no ceiling. There's no roof. Everything was open to the air, but the walls were glass or marble or this white stone of some kind, but it didn't feel like stone. It just felt like air. And but beautiful architecture. All the beautiful architecture of this earth, I saw that there.
Now, I've heard tell of other people that would say pretty much the same thing. But isn't it true that people often have variances? They have a basic overall big picture, but the big picture has variations from one person to the next?
There's some variation. I mean, there should be some variations. There should, because some people should see different things. But what you look for are the common threads. And the common threads have always been just a courthouse. A courthouse is that old architecture kind of thing. That's, an old church. I saw the onion domes, the Russian onion domes. I saw spires that you would see like in Thailand. I saw those. They were golden, actually. I saw rivers, meadows, hills, mountains, huge, literally gold roads, like the yellow brick road, but they seemed gold to me. I kept thinking, I'm dead, but am I going to go see the Wizard of Oz? What's the deal here? Because that is a gold road. But I've had other people say, I said, when you look down, what was the road like? They said, well, it was gold.
Well, Christians do have a song out about streets that are as pure as gold.
Uh-huh. Streets that are pure as gold. I had one person that was on a radio show with me. She said she had been dead for 3 hours, I think it was. And she said, I saw jeweled gates. And how they always talk about the pearly gates? She said it had pearls on it. It had diamonds on it. And I said, where were the gates? And she said, they were to the garden. They weren't the gates of the whole heaven itself, but they were into this garden that she went into. I've had other people say that they saw people building houses and houses being constructed, and they were just, fabulous terraces. Now, I saw that. A lot of terraces, and then incredible, just the flowers and the meadows. Lots of meadows, grass and meadows and, flowers growing. And I love that. I love that natural look where there's just this huge meadow and there's daffodils and narcissus and tulips and things just coming right out of the grass. I always thought that was the coolest thing. Especially because in Houston you can't have anything that's got a bulb.
Yeah.
They rot.
But there's a lot of rain happens here in Houston.
Yeah, I know. So for 35 years I couldn't have any tulips or daffodils down there, unless I bought them at the nursery and had them in a pot.
Well, I got daffodils, but I did that by impregnating my wife. I'm pretty sure my kids are going to tell me how angry they are at that remark when I get out of the show.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But, I noticed that you broke this thing down into different chapters about the different kind of visitations.
Yeah, the sections, yeah.
And you had a section in here on visions, so, not angels do you see in material. A lot of them are just in visions alone.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the more I'm on shows, the more I'll find themes. Like I did a radio show not too long ago, where everyone it was all the stuff about birds and animals, appearing after like a loved one dies. That's why I had such a large section on animals in here. Dogs that can literally seem like they're performing miracles. But the big thing has been, after a loved one dies, their favorite birds showing up all the time.
You mean like the man in Angel Tales with the blue jay?
Yes, with the blue jay. Another guy with or another family with the sparrows. Another one with what was the one that was flying around? And it was a dove. I think a dove. I'm not sure. Sunday, I had a book signing for Angel Tales over in a neighboring community, and the lady that was there talked about when her husband died about 2 years ago, I believe, And she said that since he died, she has found nothing but feathers everywhere. Now, feathers, there are these things that show up a lot. Dimes, pennies, feathers, and birds. Those are like the favorite signals from the other side of, hey, we're here, your loved ones. Hey, I'm here. This is a sign to you. She said, I have a house where I do not have a single down pillow, down comforter, I don't have a feather in my house. And she said she was sitting in her office chair, and she got up from her office chair, which is a black chair, and her coworker, she turned around, and her coworker said, turn that chair around. And she said, why? She said, turn the chair around. The back of the chair was completely covered with white down feathers.
This isn't the only case where stuff like that happens, though, is it?
No. She said on another day she went out into her front yard and there were these brown feathers everywhere, all over her yard. This was about 6 months ago. She picked up all the feathers and put them in a pile, and she counted them. There were 67. 2 days before that, her aunt and uncle had died, and that day that she found all those feathers was their 67th wedding anniversary.
Their 67th?
Yeah.
Does she happen to find it something like that, say, like every year?
No, they just died. They just died recently. But there were 67 feathers, and that was right after they died, and it was on the day of their 67th anniversary. Now I sat there and I went, this 2 days ago I just heard the story. I said, that is an amazing story.
Yeah, it sounds pretty amazing. I thought that one with the guy with the lightning was pretty amazing. It's a wonder he lived.
Yes, it is a wonder he lived. It is a wonder he lived.
I thought you had a bunch of fascinating stories in here. And like you said, you had so many of them, and some were short, some were long. Mm-hmm. You had a whole, range of different types of, visitations. You had, like from departed family members. I think you had several, stories about that in there, didn't you?
Yes, I do. In fact, that's probably what I have the most stories of are family members who show up or send very unusual signs, that they're here and they're helping and they're, working along with us, helping us to protect us, and also just letting us know that this is only part of our life. Our real life starts when we go to the other side, I mean, this is, like my father said, this is the dream. This is the illusion world that we're in. And that's probably why it's so, seems so difficult. It's not an illusion, it's a nightmare.
Well, now, also, though, it's not always the nice things that they come for. Sometimes angels come to warn us of, bad things as well, don't they?
Well, I think angels and departed family members come to warn us of something that could cause us harm. Everything from natural disasters, but especially car accidents or skiing accidents, where we could really be hurt physically in some kind of a thing. We see that kind of thing show up a lot. When I was on Coast to Coast Radio, George Norrie said, he said, my favorite story is always the truck driver going down the road. He starts to fall asleep and a mysterious arm disembodied arm appears out of nowhere, grabs the steering wheel and pulls the truck back onto the road. There's nobody there.
I think I remember in your book, because I read a lot of those stories. I read your whole book. Mm-hmm. But I think one of them in there was a very similar story to what you were talking about to George Norrie. But in this case, I think an unseen hand or something actually put a woman's foot on the brake.
That's right. That's right. Put her foot on the brake so that she stopped the car and before she, before impact. There's another story. I think it's in this one because I just finished another one that's probably twice as long as Angel Tales. My next one's called Angel Dreams. But there's a woman who had a dream in the middle of the night that her little boy fell out of the back of the car. She was driving down the highway and he fell out like a minivan. The door opens and he fell out. And the next day she was just paranoid, but they were getting ready to go to the airport to, get on a plane. And she was driving the car and her son is in his car seat, because now you got to put the kids in the back seat, in those car seats. And she had them all strapped down and she went around a corner and the door flew open and the car seat had not been belted to the seat correctly, where he and the car seat started to go out the door, and she saw the car seat completely just float back into the back seat, and then the door shut and her son be saved. Now, that's pretty weird.
That's pretty freaky, all right. I mean,
yeah, I know. And I said, that's a good story. She said, I know. She said, because I had this dream the night before, she said, I was so careful to make sure he was in his car seat the correct way. He was belted in the right, because I was paranoid something was going to happen to him. And then it happened. And she said he should have flown out of that car and died. But she said it was like an invisible hand picked up that whole car seat and put that baby back in the car, and then the door closed, as if a hand was closing the door.
And, it's not just in your book. I see TV shows of similar things happening time and time again. You can see good documentaries about it on the History Channel and Discovery and some of those places. But it's really pretty common for people to be saying, and I even hear preachers talking about it in the pulpit.
Yeah, I think there are several things that I think are changing. One is because we have the internet and because we have, in the last 10 years, we have more books like mine out there. I think for the first time, many times I've been asked, are we getting more, is more of this kind of thing happening? No, I think this kind of thing has happened every single day, a billion times a day, for all time. The difference is we are now willing to share it because 10 years ago, everybody thought I was a kook. They thought, she's totally crazy. Now people say, hey, that happened to me, or that happened to my son, or that happened to my daughter. I had that experience. I know just what you're talking about. And all of us talk about ourselves and our experiences and our faults more than any generation ever did before. In my mother's generation, she was 92 years old when she died last year. And she said she never had a girlfriend. And I said, why not? And she said, because I would never tell another woman what was going on in my life.
I wonder why.
Because they feared ostracism. They were to be very private. You did not tell another woman, my husband's being mean to me or anything like that, because you would lose face. You would lose respect.
Oh.
And that's that's part of the World War II generation. And now my granddaughter's generation, they talk about everything, even more than I do.
Now, my wife's generation, she tells everybody everything. There are no secrets.
But that's my point, is all of us are more open with what's going on in our lives. Our health, they have all these HIPAA privacy laws and everything, and everybody's so big mouth, nobody cares. You know, it's a joke if you ask me, you know. You go to the hospital and everybody's all in line and everybody knows everything everybody's going through. So, I think we are just willing to share our stories and tell other people what happened to us because we do not fear ostracism and being labeled as crazy or nuts like we were before. I can tell you, though, even because I live in a small town in Indiana, I don't go around, you know, I do it publicly, but I don't go around telling all my stories. No, because that's not this place that I live, they're not that open.
Well, I can understand that because, you know, even today we're not exactly all the way out of the Stone Age yet, so to speak.
Oh, no, we're not.
But we're getting there. We're making strides.
Yeah, we are.
But I was going to say, we're getting pretty close to 9:30.
Yeah.
Is there some things that you'd like to cover that we haven't brought up yet? I heard you mention a few things at the beginning of the show, and I can't remember we got to all of them yet.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that when you to keep yourself open to, you know, pay attention to these small things that happen, like the lady with the feathers. She walked out and she saw these feathers. You know, most people would say, oh, they'd start complaining. My yard's a mess. What happened? Did a bunch of geese come by? What's going on? You know, and they would complain. She didn't. She knew this was unusual. She went out and she picked up every single feather and she counted them. And then she took the time to say, all right, there's 67 feathers. Now what can this mean? The more we try to look for the meaning in our lives, the spiritual meaning in our lives, we will have more meaning in our lives. The other thing is that when my father was on the other side and when he was dead for 22 minutes, and he was having that conversation with the spirit, you know, with the being of light, and he was sent back. And so I said to him, why did they send you back? And he said, because they told me I had not learned the only lesson that human beings are sent to earth to learn. And I said, what is that? And he said, the lesson of love. So the Bible and the New Testament tell you that we are supposed to love God, love our neighbor as ourselves, love ourselves. A lot of us don't love ourselves. We need to start there, you know. You start taking care of yourself and really not being selfish, but to love yourself, take care of yourself, and don't be so down on yourself. We're here to love, and we're here to take care of our fellow man and to love our God. And that is what our human experience is meant to be.
About loving ourselves and loving others, we could do a whole show almost about that one thing right there.
Well, you could probably do about 5 months. You know?
I mean, got so many people, they disillusion themselves. They think they love themselves, but their actions show that they don't love themselves because they're doing things that if they really love themselves, they would not be doing.
That's right. That's absolutely right, you know.
And just that alone will get you into several, you know, a day or a few days or whatever of a show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. Wholeheartedly.
But, you know, we as humans, we tend to delude ourselves anyway. But if the other side's real and this is the delusion, I guess it's supposed to be that way. It seems to fit.
Yes, it does seem to fit, doesn't it? Yes, it does.
And when did you say your next book's going to be coming out again?
Next year. I don't know when, but it will be next year. It's called Angel Dreams, but it's not for another year. So I would guess about this time next year. So it's quite a while from now. But like I said, and you had said earlier also, my website is www.catherinelanigan.com. They can send stories to me at CD, C as in Catherine, D as in dog, Lanigan, Lanigan, @AOL.com. That's my email. And you can buy my books at, you know, Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com at the Apple Store, iStore, and I think on Kobe as well. So we have quite a few different online stores that things are, and you can always order the physical book through Barnes & Noble, any of the big chains, and even your independent stores. I have lots of independent stores that have certainly can order the book if they don't have it on hand.
Okay, that's always good news.
Yeah.
Now I was going to also mention that this show will be archived here, and in the archive I have here and at my other show, Talk Now Radio, I'm going to have the full description, her picture, her book cover, and I'm going to have a link to her book where it's at Amazon where you can buy it, and it'll be there from now until whenever time memorial, as far as I'm concerned, for y'all to hear this show again. And this show is also going to play over at YouTube and Daily Motion and Meta Cafe. And Catherine, I'll be sending you links to all of this, by the way. So you're going to get about 5 or 6 links from me.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
And I also want to let everybody know, if y'all come to my site, if y'all are looking for the archives, some people have mentioned they had trouble finding them. Right underneath the player on the front page, I put a link with a banner that says On Demand Shows, so y'all can have an easier time finding the archive here. And what I like about my archives over YouTube's and the other video places is I can use the whole entire pictures, links, description, and the access to her book, the whole things, whereas over there, I'm just limited to a little bit of text and the actual video itself. So there's advantages to listening over here. Plus, I have a review section if y'all want to give her a review and tell her how much you like her. And like she said a minute ago, you can reach her at www.catherinelanigan.com. And she also gave you the email address. Feel free to write to her. She loves to get these stories. And she'll probably even include your story in her book, in fact. And on your website, don't you have a blog or a forum or something?
Yeah, I think there is. And, send your story to me, I'll write back to you, and together we'll edit it and flesh it out. So don't be shy. I've taken stories and done the entire story when somebody's only sent me a paragraph. So it's not like you have to be a writer. Don't be afraid. It's okay. It's fine.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of authors, they especially that take stories from others, they understand that a little bit of editing will go with it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then after I edit it, then someone else edits it again. So none of us are immune, trust me.
That I can believe.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank all my listeners for coming. I couldn't have a show without the listeners anymore than I could have one without the guests. And I want to also leave you an open invitation to come back. As a matter of fact, I kind of hope to hear from you to do the follow-up on Angel Dreams.
Well, I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
I'm glad to hear that. I was kind of worried you may not feel that way after I accidentally disconnected.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. Listen, we've had everything from being on television shows where, the camera fell over to after 30 years, we've been through it all. So I think you did a great job of picking it back up and moving back on. So terrific.
Well, I'm going to call this one here a night. I'm going to go spend some time with my wife.
Sounds great.
And I'm going to let you have some time to yourself to enjoy some TV or spend some time with your husband.
All right, thank you.
I got your information, and I think you got mine. Don't be bashful. I'm down-home Southern folks, so I'm friendly.
Exactly. Well, me too. Me too.
All right.
Thank you so much. I surely enjoyed it. It was just a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon and hearing the show.
Okie dokie. I'll be sending you those links, and you have a good night.
You too. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for sharing.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody. Ordinarily, I would take this time and share some links with y'all from my friends page and from my radio's favorite page. However, for the second time since this show started tonight, the module that allows access to that page has been disabled. I don't know if my web host is disabling it for some reason unbeknownst to me, or if a hacker's getting to it, but it doesn't do me a lot of good to keep re-enabling it if somebody's going to keep disabling it, and I don't find a way to block their access. So I'll check into that. And I do have one link right here on the front page I can tell you all about, is World UFO Today. Also, Saturday, I will be interviewing Andrea Piran. Her book is House of Darkness, House of Light. This is one you may want to catch live. Ask her questions in the chat room. She actually lived in this house. She was experiencing the poltergeist activity for many years in the house. And this is her story, her experience. The Warren family come out and investigated the house. I haven't read the whole book yet, but it sounds like a very interesting story. They're working into making it into a video, I hear. It's not going to have the same name, but they are working it into a video. So you might want to catch up with us on that. In the meantime, I'm going to call that one a wrap. And you guys have a good night and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.